for just a moment, keep going to the right from Titus and look at Hebrews chapter 12. I just want to point out the 14th verse in the 12th chapter. And if you don't have a little mark by that, you should, because it's a very strong call of our holy God to us as children. God says all believers are in the sanctification process or they're not genuinely saved. As he says this, pursue peace with all people. You say, what is that? Well, the work of righteousness is peace. That's what the scriptures say. That the ungodly are restless. They have no peace. The godly have peace because they have God's righteousness. So pursue peace with all people. Now look at this next word. And holiness. That's this purity that we're talking about. That Titus 2 says is to become a conscious choice, especially of all of us, but especially of young women. And holiness, now look at this, without which no one will see the Lord. Without God's righteousness, without the work of sanctification, without the holiness that salvation brings to a life, there is no evidence that the person is regenerated. God says, you won't see me. If my righteousness is not at work in your life, and if the sanctifying work of the Holy Spirit is not operative within you, you're not a believer. That description of Jesus and what he wants in his church is the next character quality we're looking at. So go back to Titus 2, and we will be there other than some verses I'll point to. And I want you to think through what Jesus is saying. Because we're in the 9th, there are 12 characteristics for a grace-energized woman that are in these verses that we've been looking at. We're on number 9 of 12. But Christ's church has been called to this high standard and empowered by the Holy Spirit to stay morally pure. Believers have faced sexual temptation at every intensity level all through the centuries, and by God's grace have found strength to resist. There hath no temptation taking any of us that is not common to all of us, but God is always faithful, and he always makes a lighted, marked exit door like we have around the auditorium. He equally always makes an avenue, a way, a doorway, an opportunity. He personally opens the door for us to get out. If you're ever in a kind of a situation you want to get out and someone graciously, helps you get out of that situation, think of that next time you're tempted, that God is graciously offering you a way out of that temptation. He wants us to stay pure. From Joseph fleeing Potipher's wife in Genesis 39 to Paul charging Timothy to do the same thing and flee youthful lust in 2 Timothy 2, God's desire for his children is clear. Jesus explains that it is impurity of thought that leads to impurity of action in Matthew 15. So this moral purity starts with our minds, as we saw last time, given over to the Lord and allowing God to sanctify us. That's part of the conscious choice we have. The Puritans used to put it this way. They say the wagons follow the ruts. That's a curious thought. That we don't think about. What they're saying is that a person does not just launch into some form of sexual immorality that they have not thought about and made a pathway toward in their mind. And the ruts in the mind, the epinephrine trails, if you want to put it that way, through their neurons, those connections they have made have connected their body to that fantasy or desire, and their body follows the tracks that their mind has rutted in the road for them. So we have to be very careful to have that sanctified mind.